What would you do if you lived in a communist country, in a place where everything was controlled? Your access to your family, your access to news, your access to the entire world in reality. This is what happened with a friend of mine named George. George came from Cuba. He left in the middle of the night in a raft with a couple of friends and his wife, and they traveled to the shores of America for 3 days. No food, no water, no access to anything to help them with the journey. Only George made it to America alive. His wife passed away, his friends passed away. That's how important it was for them to get away from the country that they lived in. But once he set foot on American soil, he was safe. The Cuban Adjustment Act became law on November 2nd, 1966. This was 53 years ago. Its Section 1 of the Act was designed to permit thousands of Cubans, refugees, to adjust to the lawful permanent residence. Most of these Cubans were parolees or non-immigrants who could not return to Cuba for political reasons, but they could seek residence through other assistance. The wet foot, dry foot policy is part of this act. It means that those who come from Haiti or Cuba seeking refugee are given permanent legal resident status if they make it to the shores of the United States. If they're caught while still at sea, they are either returned to Haiti or Cuba or not allowed entry into the United States. In the last third of 1965, the total number of Cubans went from 211,000 to 411,000. This is nearly double of how many Cubans who were trying to escape that totalitarian society. This mass exodus occurred after 3 years of suspended flights between Cuba and the United States as part of the latter's response to the Cuban Missile Crisis. Once they reached the land of the United States, they were given access to federal benefit programs like temporary assistance for needy families, refugee resettlement assistance, refugee cash assistance, and refugee medical assistance. One of the authors that I studied, Zeller, argues that those who state the alternative immigration policies should be given to countries like Venezuela and Honduras have similar human rights violations like Cuba had. However, he states that Cuba was a totalitarian political society. This means that the constituents of Cuba were not allowed any other parties to vote into office. However, in Venezuela and Honduras, they had democratic governments and they could affect change in their countries by voting. The Cuban Adjustment Act of 1966 was repealed in 2017 by President Obama, since Cuba has been reopening its doors and looking to stabilize the country after Cuba's death. Now, my friend did not take part of any of these assistance, but he was given opportunities to become an American citizen, opportunities that my friends from Mexico and Honduras and El Salvador do not have. They are subject to illegal immigration. They had to come because the wait list to get into the country is extremely long. They are subject to the rigorous visa process. They have to go through stringent immigration red tape in order to apply for legal status in the United States. First, they must befit a specific category as defined by Congress. Then they receive a temporary visa. And if they do not obtain a visa, then they are considered to be illegal immigrants. This would subject them to be detained by immigration and customs enforcement acts like ICE, and they would get deported back to their homeland. They would be further penalized by being banned from re-entering the country for another 10 years. However, the Cubans did not need to get a visa. They could get residency right away. In the hotbed of the conversations that we have in our country over immigration, we need to take a look at this. These people are part of our society. They contribute to our society. And we need to have those conversations about what changes can be effected to help everyone.